welcome to episode 16 of the Scotch podcast. Today I'm joined with Mr Stillwell and Mr Tremain to talk about the Goose Island camp.
So, Goose has got a pretty rich history with Scotch College. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
For sure. Yeah, the history with Goose and Scotch has been going on a long time now, this is our 57th year that we've been going to the island.
Goodness.
A huge commitment to a place, and that's really changed over time. But originally started as a place to get away from, I guess, not so much day-to-day life, but escape the city, escape, I guess, the urban environment and be able to really get away from everything.
And when was the first time you guys went to Goose? When was your first trip?
I've been thinking about this. I've probably been to Goose school trip-wise for on and off about 8 years now, I reckon. So probably, mid-2015 time, I reckon, was the first time I got out there on a school camp. I've been out there a bit earlier with Mr Stillwell and Mr Kelly and some of the old staff members for some maintenance weekends, which is a great opportunity to get out there and get to know the place a little bit before you take students out there. But yeah, I reckon I've probably been out on the island getting on sort of 15, 20 times now.
Veteran. So a place like the back of your hand.
Not as many as Mr Stillwell though.
Yeah, I think I'm probably almost up to 15 years. I think I did the maths a couple of years ago and I've almost spent a year of my life on Goose, which is...
Wow.
It's crazy.
Long
Yeah,
time.
it's different. Yeah.
And you go on every Goose camp, don't you?
No.
Oh, not everyone.
No, I think I'd go absolutely mad if I went on every Goose camp. I'd be,
If it was every camp, it would be 35 days on an island.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be nuts.
That'd be wild.
Yeah.
Well, because I remember during our, what's it called? When you go for, the first few days and then
Yes.
you come back to Adelaide and then you go to Goose later.
Yep.
And we did lots of, stuff with the Narungga community. How do we get that connection with them?
Yeah, that's been ongoing for a long period of time. When we first started going to Goose, some students from Point Pearce that were Narungga people came over and boarded at the school. That was in the sort of late 60s, early 70s. And then more recently, we've sort of reconnected with the school, with the community at Point Pearce, with a range of different Narungga people, with some amazing elders. Uncle Eddie and Nana Peggy are a couple of those people that you might have met on those trips, and being able to integrate into that community and build a really cool relationship and do some learning sort of on both sides, us being able to go in and learn from them and they've been able to do a little bit of the same, but that's continuing to build that connection.
Can you tell us a little bit about what happens on that 2-day introduction trip?
Yep, absolutely. So generally, it's always different and it depends what's going on the peninsula at that period in time. But generally, we go into the school and we connect with the students there at Point Pearce. They've just got a school from reception to year 3, and then all the students go up to Maitland to go to high school. There's also kindy kids there, so get to spend some time with them, often get to spend some time with some elders or some other Narungga people, members of the Narungga community in Point Pearce. Sometimes go and have a look at some of the sites that are around the peninsula. Botherers Rock is a sacred site that's out there and part of the dreaming of that place. And then on that trip, we also spend some time kind of doing intro aquatic activities, like doing some sailing, doing some kayaking at Port Vincent on the other side of the peninsula.
Well, it's probably quite a fitting time that we're having this podcast. The year 10s are about to embark on their Goose journeys. Mr Tremain, why should people be getting excited about Goose?
Goose is just one of those opportunities that you just don't often get a chance to do outside, say, the Scotch community. It's a great opportunity to get out to disconnect from technology, spend some quality time with some peers of yours, and engage in some aquatics activities. But to me, it's not always just about the activities. It's about the people you're there with for 5 days, building a relationship with those the peers, with the staff members that are out there, and just really getting a great opportunity to be out in the elements and just living as a group of people together, relying on each other, but working together and just fully enjoying the moment, really just taking opportunities of what presents there and then.
Definitely. Well, me and Tess actually went on Goose together. Yeah. Don't know if you know. We've had some pretty fond memories on Goose Camp.
Yep.
One of which, we were in our tents one night and we started making cat noises and seagull noises.
And dog noises.
Oh, yeah, and dog noises. Because just to trick everyone to think there was just a wild cat on the island. I think it worked because there was a bit of talk about it in the morning.
Harry, the camp instructor, he was going to come tell us off apparently.
You know that
funny.
does work the other way when staff members are waiting for you to go to be quiet. And they're making noises out there, and people inside tents also think there's something outside.
That was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny. What are your guys' funniest memories on Goose?
I've got heaps. There's so much funny stuff that happens out there, but one that comes to mind from a few years ago was Angus Baker, who was a boarder from down at Robe. He was out there and he emceed the entertainment night, which is kind of the traditional student-led evening on the last night on Goose. And he dressed up kind of similar to me. He had a bit more stuff on. He was sitting in a kayak. He had some box thorning overalls on, a snorkel mask, and he got everyone up to sing the national anthem and then the Scotch song. And it was funny, but it was also awesome because everyone got right into it. But sort of burnt into my memory that image of him just with all that stuff on, conducting the choir, I guess.
For me, I think it's, like Mr Stillwell said, there's just so many memories. And I think in terms of funny memories, sort of comes down to that student entertainment night I think Mr Stillwell might have been talking about. I've got this great memory of Max Footer doing some impersonations of perhaps some of his teachers that he'd had over the years. So let's just say he got Mr Kilpatrick pretty much on point.
Did a good
I think
Albano.
I've heard about
Yeah,
that.
and an Albano, yes, yeah.
I can only imagine.
What did we do, Poppy? We
that's
sung
a
Pitch Perfect, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, it was
Acapella.
me, Tess, Lucas, and Charlotte, and we
Well, that
did
was pretty
Pitch
good.
Perfect. Yeah, there were some of them that I was in tears of, and I had to leave.
Yeah,
'Cause-
because Max on the drums. He had pots and pans and was banging.
It was pretty good because everyone kind of got involved in it.
Yeah, it was. Unexpected. Yeah.
I think that's what is great about Goose,
Yeah.
like just getting involved. And it's one of those nights, student entertainment night, where it can be, if students don't want to get involved, it can just be pretty quiet and not very interesting. But the more students take on the opportunity to just put themselves out of their comfort zone, whether it's out in the aquatic activities or doing student entertainment night, it's more enjoyable for everybody.
Yeah, everyone got a lot closer, I thought.
Definitely. Mr. Tremain, speaking about involvement, how have you gone so involved in Goose? 'Cause I get Mr. Stillwell, he's a bit outdoor ed, but where's this connection come from?
Yeah, so for me, I've always been involved in outdoor activities, whether it's in my personal life or through my connection Scouts. And since I've been at Scotch, I've always been involved in a bit of outdoor ed, whether that was many years ago with the Year 7 camps. I used to run a couple of those back in the day before Mr. Stillwell was around, just sort of filling in here and there where I can. So it was always a great opportunity to get involved in the Goose program. And I suppose over the years I've learnt the ways of Goose, become competent in all of its operational procedures and everything else that goes with that. And I've been given the opportunity over the last few years to lead several Goose camps. So it's good to be able to be in that position, but also help other staff members enjoy their Goose time and upskill them in terms of the way we operate out at Goose Island.
Nice.
Do you guys have a favourite activity to do on Goose?
All three of the aquatic activities are awesome. I think it's so cool to be able to sail out in the open ocean. That's an amazing, unique experience. Kayaking around Wardang Island and just being able to go and explore these reefs and sort of bommies and these areas where the sea lions are. But I think probably a highlight for lots of people is swimming with the sea lions. Just they are the puppy dogs of the ocean. They're amazing. You can swim underwater and they want to play and kind of mimic you. And sometimes they'll sit on the bottom and just look at you, or sometimes they'll be super active and jumping out of the water. That would definitely be my favourite. I don't know if the two of you got that experience when you're out there. It doesn't always happen, but you get lucky sometimes.
The seals were kind of quiet when we went, but we went snorkeling, and me and Tess went a few times, and it was so amazing. There was that little reef, kind of outside of that main rock thing.
Trying to remember.
The rock thing, yeah.
Oh, that one.
There's a few of those.
But yeah, I saw some really cool fish. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
so. Mr. Tremain, do you have a favourite activity?
I think my favourite activity would be taking students out snorkeling, getting the opportunities to get them out in the water, experience what Mr. Stillwell was talking about with the sea lions, just the students' reactions and pure enjoyment and just thinking that's amazing, like the best thing they've ever done, as a probably my favourite thing to do out at Goose Island.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I actually think one of my favourite things to do was baking. Me and Tess and Charlotte, we made some scones, and everyone, when they got back from doing that activity, because I think one day it might have been too windy or something for us to do it. So we stayed back and made scones, and it was so awesome. I loved it. Yeah, everyone was just thrilled when they got back, and there was some hot scones waiting for them.
Yeah, I love going to that beach.
Yeah,
there's a lot of beaches.
That one though.
On Wardang Island.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was awesome, and body surfing and stuff.
Yeah.
And who was doing cheerleading? Lucas Nunn and Regan were throwing each other in the air. That was awesome too. And beach cricket with Manning. Oh, that was awesome.
If you guys were stranded on a desert island, what would be 3 items for survival?
It's you, Tremain.
All right. So, I have been thinking about this. It's clear,
You've been thinking about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
just in case.
And, if we're stuck out on Goose Island, I feel like you can use some of the resources that are there. So, I'm not going to need water. There's a bit of food. We might go fishing. I think there's something to go fishing with, actually. Would be number one there. I'm going to go get some fish. I need something to eat. Look, I don't need technology. I'm just out there by myself. I don't need to worry about that. I don't need a mobile phone. I don't even need a sat phone to call home.
Just immerse yourself in nature.
Just immerse myself in nature. So I think I need something to potentially light a fire with, something to catch some food with, and I think something just for a bit of take the time out of the day. Probably a book to read or something like that, or just chill out. I'm not phased at all.
So you just bring that one book and just read that on repeat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice, practical.
And then I can light a fire with it when I need to.
So fair enough. And Miss Stillwell?
Oh gosh,
haven't given it as much thought as Mr Tremain.
I've given it absolutely no thought. Especially on Goose, because there's lots of stuff there. I think, you can be practical about it, can't you? Light a fire, try and store some water, read a book, maybe. I think maybe having something to do to keep your mind off the boredom of being there by yourself would be really important. The mind game would be huge if you were stuck out there other than just pure survival.
Yeah,
definitely.
So for those who haven't been to Goose, there's a local resident called Abraham, and he lives on that activity beach. Yep. Yeah. And he's a big seal. So we were wondering how Abraham got his name, and how long has he been around?
That's a really good question. I think, this isn't documented anywhere, but I think that my youngest brother, Dave, actually named him about 7 or 8 years ago. He's an outdoor instructor, and he came out and did some camps at Goose. And Abraham, there wasn't a sea lion living on the activities beach, or there sort of had been on and off, but then he just sort of took up residence there, and we kind of have to try and shoo him off the beach before we went down there every now and then to go kayaking. But I think Dave named him once he stuck around for a whole camp, and then it kind of lived on from there. Who knows if it's actually the same sea lion that comes back every time, but
just assume it is.
We're committed to it.
It's a good name.
And I suppose in some of those funniest stories, it just reminds me of some times we're going down to the activity beach to do some kayaking, and the kayaks are nice and high on the beach there. You need to basically get past an Abraham the seal, sea lion sitting there on the beach, and sometimes very stubborn, and nobody wants to meet a how many kilos you reckon there, Stillwell?
It'd be a couple of hundred
kilo sea lions sitting on the beach there, getting in your way. So we generally have to tiptoe right around the outside. So it can be very challenging sometimes down there.
Yes. Well, I remember on Goose having one of my most magical moments was with you, Miss Stillwell, when you had brought out the telescope and we looked at Saturn and you could see the rings on it. That was I'd ingrained in my brain forever.
Yeah.
Cool. What are your guys' most magical moments?
You've got Mr Tremain to thank for that one, actually. He's the one who
Thank you, Mr Tremain.
Got the telescope sorted. It's amazing spot to have no light pollution and be able to do that, be able to see the stars like that.
Could you actually believe there was rings around Saturn though? Actually looked like the photos.
Yeah, it looks like when people get those little Pinterest tattoos. Yeah, it looks like one of them.
And it's not until you actually see it with your own eyes.
You know, one of the little minimalistic tattoos. It's little fine line. That's what it looks like.
Something to think about for the future.
Yeah, maybe.
My magical moment, I think, Oh, there's so many cool times when people really push themselves and do something that's outside of their comfort zone. I think that's really cool to witness from the other side of the fence. But I love the sunsets. I love when when you've been doing stuff all day and everyone's kind of in that chilled zone, and there might be people sitting down on the rocks or up on the summit, or just sitting out the front of the hut. Someone might be playing guitar. People are just hanging out, having a chat. It's pretty low key, and sort of watch the sun go down. I don't think you don't get to do that much in the city, or you maybe don't make the time to do it, but it just kind of happens there. And yeah, that is really magical, really cool.
I love journaling because I don't usually journal, but when we're on the camps, it's just so nice to sit down and like have the ocean around you and sit down and actually write down what you've done in your day and journal. That's one of my favourite things to do on the camps.
I agree.
I'm going to go with the opposite end of the day. First thing in the morning, little ritual. I can't get that word out today. Morning activity, the jumping in for a morning dip. But this particular morning a few years ago, the sun was coming up. The weather was warm enough. It was nice, and go in for the dip, and all of a sudden, a couple of dolphins just come past as we're down there on for morning dip.
That is awesome.
That's
and
incredible.
It actually brought a few people back in for a second morning dip when we were down there.
That's rare.
With some staff members, drying off, like about to go back up for a cup of coffee or something. It's like nuts. Dolphins are in the water, back in for another round. So it was just that perfect morning. Sun was coming up, and there they were.
It's incredible.
I liked having that structure because you don't really make time for it in the morning, like going in the water. Even though it's like, I don't know, I live kind of close to the beach, so I probably could if I wanted to, but like there's just no like structure to do that. So I really enjoyed that.
I was happy we were forced into the water.
Thanks, Tess.
Encouraged Tess.
Strongly encouraged.
Last question. How would you describe Goose in one sentence for those people who have never been? It's a difficult one.
It's hard in one sentence.
Yes.
I'm just going to go with just an amazing opportunity to be out there disconnecting and spending time in nature.
Yeah, I would say it's a magical, unique place to be able to disconnect and reconnect with people around you.
Yeah. I think those both summarise it quite nicely.
How would you describe it?
This is a tough question.
It is. There's so many things about it. I think probably there's just a good time to kind of just be with your friends, get to know new people, and learn some new skills.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I can't think of a sentence, so I'll just agree.
Well, Mr Tremain, before we actually started the podcast, he was making some fun noises into the microphone. Yeah, those are the ones. And I think on that note, thank you for joining us for episode 16. See you next time. Thanks for coming on,
No worries,
guys.
thanks for having us.
Pleasure.
Done.